Hi everyone, welcome to today's class and आज हम लोग लीज स्टार्ट करेंगे ट्रांसफर ऑफ प्रॉपर्टी में. आई होप आई एम ऑडिबल एंड विजिबल. यस. या तो बिफोर स्टार्टिंग विथ टुडेज लेक्चर मैं आपको कुछ चीजें बता दूं कि जैसे कि हमने लास्ट क्लास में व्हाट वी कंप्लीटेड, हमने मॉर्गेज कंप्लीट किया था. ठीक है. सो बेसिकली मैं बार बार आपको ये चीज बता रही हूँ कि आपको जैसे सब्जेक्ट है ट्रांसफर ऑफ प्रॉपर्टी एक्ट, तो इसमें आपको बहुत ज्यादा इन डिटेल बुक्स कमेंट्रीज नहीं पढ़नी है, क्योंकि जो आपका एग्जाम है सेबी का, इसमें जो पैटर्न है वो बहुत ज्यादा आपको डीप में क्वेश्चंस नहीं पूछते हैं या कमेंट्रीज नहीं पूछते हैं. ठीक है. वो उनको किस चीज से मतलब है, उनको बेयर एक्ट प्रोविजन से मतलब है. तो जितने भी क्वेश्चंस अभी तक हमने देखे हैं प्रीवियस ईयर पेपर्स में भी, वो सारे बेयर एक्ट सेंट्रिक रहते हैं. तो अब क्योंकि टाइम बहुत कम है, सो हमको बेयर एक्ट पे ही फोकस अपना रखना है, क्योंकि वैसे ही क्वेश्चंस बनते हैं. और जैसे कि ये सब्जेक्ट है टीपीए, तो इसमें भी आपको सारे सेक्शंस नहीं पढ़ने हैं. हम जो सेक्शंस पढ़ रहे हैं वो ऑलरेडी कुछ इंपॉर्टेंट सेक्शंस ही हैं. ठीक है. तो इसके अलावा आपको अननेसेसरी कोई भी और सेक्शन नहीं पढ़ना है. सिर्फ इम्पोर्टेंट इंपॉर्टेंट सेक्शन पढ़ना है, स्मार्ट वर्क करना है हमको, और बेयर एक्ट पे ही हमको अपना पूरा फोकस रखना है. ठीक है. अगर आपको बुक्स पढ़नी है तो आप बाद में कभी बुक्स पढ़ सकते हैं जब आपके पास टाइम हो, बट अभी अगर आपको एग्जाम के पर्पस से देखना है तो प्लीज आप काय पे फोकस करेंगे, आप सिर्फ और सिर्फ बेयर एक्ट पे ही फोकस करेंगे अपना. ठीक है. सो हम आज की क्लास स्टार्ट करते हैं. यस. तो जैसे कि मैं हर क्लास के पहले आपको बताती हूँ कि टीपीए है, सेल है, मॉर्गेज है, इन सबके आपको चैप्टर नंबर याद रखना बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. ठीक है. तो यहाँ पे क्या दिया गया है, चैप्टर नंबर 5. तो लीज कौन से चैप्टर में है, चैप्टर नंबर 5 में लीज दिया गया है. देन चैप्टर का नाम क्या है, ऑफ लीज ऑफ इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी. मैंने इसके पहले भी आपको बताया था कि सेल भी काय के लिए होती है, इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी के लिए होती है हमारे टीपीए में. और अगर सेल मूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी की हो रही है तो वो काय में चला जाएगा, अंडर द सेल्स ऑफ गुड एक्ट. ठीक है. सेल्स ऑफ गुड एक्ट पहले, अच्छा एक जनरल क्वेश्चन है, काय का पार्ट था, इंडियन कॉन्ट्रैक्ट एक्ट का पार्ट था. और उसके बाद जो सेल्स ऑफ गुड एक्ट के सेक्शंस हैं वो यहाँ से हटके कहाँ चले गए, सेल्स ऑफ गुड एक्ट एक अलग पूरा एक्ट बना दिया गया है. ठीक है. तो उसी तरीके से लीज भी जो होगा ना, वो इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी का ही होता है. ठीक है. लीज भी इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी का होता है, मूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी का नहीं. अब हम स्टार्ट करते हैं विद द सेक्शन. तो सेक्शन 105 जो है वो लीज को डिफाइन करता है. ठीक है. तो इसमें क्या क्या चीजें दी गई हैं, अब हम इस पूरे सेक्शन को, प्रोविजन को रीड करेंगे, और प्रोविजन को रीड करते हुए उसके अकॉर्डिंगली हम पूरा प्रोविजन समझेंगे. सबसे पहले, अ लीज ऑफ इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी इज अ ट्रांसफर ऑफ अ राइट टू एंजॉय. ठीक है. देखिए, तो जब जो हमने सबसे पहले कहा था कि लीज क्या है, इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी का लीज होता है, और काय का ट्रांसफर है, राइट टू एंजॉय है. ठीक है. अच्छा, इससे पहले आपको मैं याद दिला दूं, सेल जब हम पढ़ रहे थे तो सेल में क्या जा रहा था, ओनरशिप जा रहा था. ठीक है. सिमिलरली जब हमने मॉर्गेज पढ़ा, तो मॉर्गेज में क्या जा रहा था, इंटरेस्ट जा रहा था प्रॉपर्टी में. तो सेल में ओनरशिप गई थी, मॉर्गेज में इंटरेस्ट क्या था. उस तरीके से जो लीज है इसमें ओनरशिप नहीं जा रही है, इसमें सिर्फ और सिर्फ प्रॉपर्टी को एंजॉय करने का राइट जा रहा है, ठीक है, राइट टू एंजॉय द प्रॉपर्टी। अगर आप ध्यान से मेरी सिर्फ क्लास भी सुन लेंगे ना, जिस हिसाब से हम एक एक वर्ड पे फोकस कर रहे हैं, तो आपको बहुत अच्छे से समझ में आ जाएगा। यू विल जस्ट नीड एक बार रिविजन, वन टाइम रिविजन, एंड उसके बाद आपको जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी। तो आप क्लास में ही प्रेजेंट होके जितना हो सकता है उतना सुनने, और हम धीरे धीरे ही चलेंगे जिससे कि ज्यादा आपको मिस ना हो चीजें। ओके, सो इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी इज अ ट्रांसफर ऑफ राइट टू एंजॉय such property made for a certain time। अभी एक्सप्रेस और इम्प्लाइड छोड़ दो, और इन परपेचुटी। तो क्या चीजें बोली हैं कि या तो सर्टेन टाइम के लिए, मेड फॉर अ सर्टेन टाइम, या फिर इन परपेचुटी। ठीक है, मेड फॉर सर्टेन टाइम तो मतलब लीज आप किसी सर्टेन टाइम के लिए भी बोल सकते हो। जैसे आपने बोल दिया कि मैं 1 ईयर की लीज कर रही हूँ। परपेचुटी में आपने बोल दिया कि हर साल लीज जो है वो रिन्यू होगी। तो परपेचुटी मतलब जो बार 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 बार, परपेचुअल क्या होता है, जो कि रिपीटिंग होता है। ठीक है, और स्पेसिफाइड टाइम तो आपको पता है कि 1 साल की लीज है, कि 2 साल की लीज है, या 6 महीने की लीज है। ठीक है, सो सर्टेन टाइम और इन परपेचुटी, ये आपको समझ में आ गया। कुछ सर्टेन टाइम के लिए होना है, फिक्स टाइम, या फिर परपेचुटी मतलब वो लीज चलती जाएगी। सेकेंड, सर्टेन टाइम परपेचुटी। अब सर्टेन टाइम में है तो वो एक्सप्रेस भी हो सकती है या फिर इम्प्लाइड भी हो सकती है। इम्प्लाइड कैसे होगा, जैसे अगर ए है, बी है, ठीक है, ये लेसर है, मतलब इसने प्रॉपर्टी लीज पे दी है, और इसको प्रॉपर्टी लीज पे मिली है। ठीक है, ये ट्रांसफर है, ये ट्रांसफर ही है। अब जो रेंट पे रह रहा है, जो टीनेंट है, उसने अगर मान लीजिए कि लैंडलॉर्ड को क्या बोला कि मैं यहाँ तब तक रहूंगा जब तक कि मेरा ये मान लीजिए सीजन चल रहा है, रेनी सीजन चल रहा है, तो मेरे को कुछ भी, मान लीजिए उसका कुछ काम है, बिजनेस है, अम्ब्रेला या रेनकोट, कोई भी चीज का, ठीक है, जो कि रेनी सीजन से रिलेटेड है, तो वो बोले कि जब तक कि मेरा सीजन है तब तक मैं यहाँ रहूंगा। तो डेफिनेटली ये क्या हो गया, ये इम्प्लाइड हो गया कि ये सीजन जब खत्म हो जाएगा ना, तो बी यहाँ से चला जाएगा। मतलब बी की जो टेनेंसी है वो कितने टाइम की है, 1 सेकेंड गाइस। यस, सो जो बी की टेनेंसी है वो कितने टाइम की है, वो एक सीजन की है, मतलब इम्प्लाइड हो गया। एक्सप्रेस तो वो बोल देगा कि मेरी टेनेंसी है, मैं 1 साल के लिए टेनेंट हूँ। ठीक है, तो आपको ये वाली चीज समझ में आ गई, एक्सप्रेस्ड कब होगा, इम्प्लाइड कब होगा, मैंने आपको इसका एग्जाम्पल दे दिया है। सर्टेन टाइम मैंने समझा दिया है, एक्सप्रेस बता दिया है, इम्प्लाइड बता दिया है। ठीक है, परपेचुटी भी बता दिया है, जो कि 1 बाय 1 होता रहा। इन कंसिडरेशन, इसका मतलब क्या है कि लीव जो है वो कंसिडरेशन के लिए होगी। ठीक है, मैं सारे वर्ड समझा रही हूँ जिससे कि बाद में कोई भी तरीके की प्रॉब्लम या डाउट अराइज ना हो। कंसिडरेशन, अच्छा आपको ये तो पता ही होगा, क्या हम सेल में कंसिडरेशन दे रहे थे, हम दे रहे थे, क्योंकि सेल है, गिफ्ट नहीं है। गिफ्ट में कंसिडरेशन दी जाती है, नहीं दी जाती। ठीक है, तो कंसिडरेशन देना इंपॉर्टेंट है, क्यों, क्योंकि लीव जो है वो किसी तरह की गिफ्ट नहीं है, उसके लिए कंसिडरेशन पे करना है। प्राइस, कंसिडरेशन क्या है, प्राइस है। अब ये प्राइस कैसी हो सकती है, पेड और प्रोमिस्ड। पेड मतलब क्या होता है कि ऑलरेडी उसने पे कर दिया हो, पेड, ठीक है, जैसे अपन बोलते हैं ना कि हमने इस चीज का पेमेंट कर दिया है, हो गया। या फिर प्रोमिस्ड, मतलब कि वो प्रॉमिस करे कि मैं आपको इतना अमाउंट ऑफ मनी, पैसे दूंगा। ठीक है, फ्यूचर की बात हो रही है। पेड इज पास्ट की बात, एंड प्रोमिस्ड इज फ्यूचर की बात। ठीक है, तो प्राइस दी जा रही है, पेड है या फिर प्रॉमिस्ड है, और ऑफ मनी, ठीक है, शेयर ऑफ क्रॉप्स और सर्विस। ये आपको याद रखना है, ये कई बार ऑप्शंस में हो सकता है। क्या हो सकता है? प्राइस पेड और प्रॉमिस्ड, या फिर मनी, और अ शेयर ऑफ क्रॉप्स, और एनी अदर थिंग ऑफ वैल्यू। ठीक है, तो रेंट में मतलब बेसिकली लीज में क्या क्या चीजें हो सकती हैं? मनी हो सकता है, या फिर वो या तो पैसे दे, ठीक है, या फिर वो क्रॉप्स का शेयर दे अपना लीज के लिए, या फिर वो कोई और चीज दे वैल्यू वाली, जो कि या तो पीरियोडिकली देगा वो, कौन देगा ये सब? ऑब्वियसली टेनेंट देगा, या तो वो पीरियोडिकली देगा, या फिर किसी स्पेसिफाइड ओकेजन पे देगा ट्रांसफरर को। ठीक है, ट्रांसफरर को मतलब यहाँ पे ट्रांसफरर कौन है? जो कि लैंडलॉर्ड है। ठीक है, कौन देगा? ट्रांसफरी देगा। ट्रांसफरी कौन है? जो कि टीनेंट है। हु एक्सेप्ट द टर्म, हु एक्सेप्ट द ट्रांसफर ऑन सच टर्म्स। ठीक है ना। अच्छा, ये क्या था? प्राइस पेड और प्रोमिस्ड और ऑफ मनी, थोड़ा सा यहाँ वो हो रहा है, क्योटिक हो रहा है। मैं सी, एक सिंपल सी चीज मैं बताती हूँ, ये क्या है? प्राइस पेड, प्रोमिस्ड, ठीक है, ये है आपका प्राइस, और ये है आपका मनी, रेंट, मतलब मनी, क्रॉप्स एंड सर्विस। तो आप इतना रखना, ये जो प्राइस पेड और प्रोमिस्ड है ना, ये होता है प्रीमियम, क्योंकि ये या तो पेड है या फिर प्रॉमिस की जाएगी। और जो वो मनी के बारे में बात कर रहा है, मनी या फिर शेयर ऑफ क्रॉप्स या फिर एनी अदर थिंग ऑफ वैल्यू, ये है रेंट। ओके, ये क्या है? टू बी पेड, या तो वो किसी फिक्स टाइम पे, स्पेसिफाइड ओकेजन पे मतलब दे रहे हैं, ठीक है, कि ऐसे होने पे आई विल पे यू, एक ऐसा ओकेजन उन्होंने बता दिया है, या फिर पीरियोडिकली पे कर रहे हैं। तो ये क्या होगा? आपका रेंट होगा, सॉरी लीज होगा। ठीक है, अब हम आगे बढ़ते हैं। तो अभी हम इसको, अभी हम सिर्फ प्रोविजन समझ रहे हैं, आगे इसको हम पार्ट्स में भी समझेंगे, so डोंट वरी। देन लेसर, लेसी, प्रीमियम एंड रेंट डिफाइन। अब इसी में लेसर बताया गया है, लेसी बताया गया है, प्रीमियम क्या होता है, और रेंट बताया गया है। तो जो ट्रांसफरर होता है वो होता है लेसर, एंड द ट्रांसफरी इज कॉल्ड द लेसी। ओके, द प्राइस इज कॉल्ड द प्रीमियम। This is what I was talking about right now, that the price, whether it's paid or whether it's promised, this price will be called as what? This price will be called as premium. And ठीक है, the price will be called as the premium, and the money, share, and the service or any other thing of value is called the rent. Okay, so this is what I told you right now, that the money, the share of crops, service or any other thing of value. ठीक है, it's like first money, second is share of crops, third is if any service is given, and fourth is the value, any valuable thing, any other valuable thing. So all these four of these will come under the category of rent. So if any person is paying money, then it will be, no, if anybody is any person is paying money, or if any person is paying sharing a share of crops, or giving any kind of service or any other thing of value, it will be considered to be under rent. And premium, what comes under premium? Only the price paid or promised. Okay, now moving ahead. secondary. Now we come to the introduction of lease. Now here we will be discussing some of the most important summary uh, in terms of everything which is important for the topic of lease. Okay, these are certain pointers that I have jotted down, and this will help you to understand the concept of lease very well. तो इससे पहले we discussed the provision. Now we will be discussing these points. ये जो points है, they will give you the gist or the crux of this whole provision of 105, that is of lease. Okay. Now, so lease is covered from section 105 to 107. ठीक है, section 105 to 117 जो है वो लीज में आता है, 117 है. Okay, then property should be immovable as discussed before, that the property should be immovable. No lease can be made of a movable property. Then no lease can be made of any movable property. Second point is done. Now partial transfer. As I said, that in lease only the interest or only the right to enjoy is transferred. Okay, only the right to enjoy is transferred and the right of ownership is not transferred. ठीक है, there's no ownership. Ownership is transferred in sale. In lease there's only the right of enjoyment of property that is being transferred. This means that the person or the tenant does not have the right to dispose of the property. Now, if you remember, I discussed this earlier that every owner has three kinds of right. We will also study this into the jurisprudence, the concept of ownership, that every person who is the owner has the following rights. What's the first right? To use the property. Second, to dispose of the property. And third, that is to bear the fruits of that property. When a person has all of these three rights, such person shall be considered to be the owner of the property. Okay. Now, even if this second point is removed from all these 3 points, then that person will not be called as owner, because in order to become an owner, all of these 3 points are necessary. Okay. Now, in lease, what happens is that any person will have the right to use that property. Such person will have the right to bear the fruits of that property, but such person will not have the right to dispose of the property. Now you tell me one thing. You go to some person and you ask him to rent out his flat to you. Okay. Now you are living in that person's flat. Okay. So now can you dispose of that flat? Can you sell that? Can you actually sell that flat to some C person? If there are two people, there's A, there's B. Okay. And A gave his watch to B. Okay. Just to wear it for 2 days. So can B go and sell the watch to C? He cannot, because he cannot alienate that property from himself, because he actually has the possession of that property only to use that property and only to bear the fruits of that property. He has no right to dispose of the property, right? So that is what is written here, that this is partial transfer. Only the interest is transferred. There is only the transfer of enjoyment of property as said before. Okay. We have covered 3 points. Then moving ahead, lease is never done without consideration. As I said just right now, that lease, it is not gift. In case of gift, there is no consideration is necessary. In case of a gift, no consideration is necessary. Okay. But in lease, you have to give consideration. Okay. And what is the consideration that I told you right now? Consideration is the price paid, right? Or the money the services offered, or the share of crops, or any other thing of value. Okay, so this is your consideration. Consideration will be in the form of either the price paid, or it shall be in the form of money, service, crop, or value. Price paid is the premium, and the money, service, the crop value, and every all these things is called the rent. This is the premium, is called the rent. Now, there will always be something in return of lease. The parties under lease is called the lessor and lessee. So the transferor or the landlord. Okay, the landlord will be called as the lessor, and the tenant will be the lessee. This person will be the transferor, this person will be the transferee. Now here the transferor is called the lessor, the transferee is called the lessee. Moving to the how many points are we going to see? 4, 5, 6 points. Now, price can be in the form of money, service, or crops. We have already read about it. Then price either paid altogether or in installments or timely. जो कि हमने पढ़ा था, that price either paid, जो हमने पढ़ा था, it can be first of all expressly, impliedly हमने पढ़ा था. We read about expressed and implied. Then either altogether paid or which is paid in installments. Now lease can be given for a perpetual period of time or for a specified time. Here also I give you the example of specified time, that for example the tenant wants the property for a particular season. Okay, say for a winter season. Lease can be for a perpetual period of time, that means recurring period of time, or for a specified time, for a fixed time. Then when the price is paid timely, it is called rent. Okay, so we are done with all these points. Now we'll come to essentials of contract. Essential or contents of lease. Now, if you remember sale, there also I made you note down such kind of 4 or 5 points in sale, the contents of sale, where we also discuss about the party, the property, the what kind of transfer, what kind of formalities are needed for sale. Similarly, in lease also we'll be discussing certain essentials or certain contents, because these kind of essential contents helps you remember the important pointers of the provision. Now, to start with party. So as said before, there are two parties, that is the transferor and the transferee. That is the lessor or the lessee, or as discussed here, the landlord or the tenant. Okay, so these are the parties. Now, like we discussed in sale also, that the party should be competent to contract, if you remember, right? There were certain pointers. So here also we'll be discussing certain pointers now. Okay, so first we see that there are 5 P's that we have to remember in lease. The first P is party. The second P is property. The third P is premium or rent. The fourth P is partial transfer. And the fifth P is period. Okay, so just remember that in lease contents, you have to remember the 5 P's. What are the 5 P's? Party, property, premium or rent, partial transfer, and period. Now, parties. The transferor in lease and the transferee have the same qualification as given under the seller and buyer under sale. Okay, so basically the lessor and the lessee have the same qualifications which are of buyer and seller under the sale. So what are the qualifications? First of all, the lessor should be a living person. So what do you mean by a lessor should be a living person? It also includes living person. As we know, what is a living person, that will be studying in jurisprudence. So as we know, living person is a human being, and it will also include what? Artificial persons. Remember this. It will include artificial persons. Example of artificial person is a company. So a company can be a lessor. Okay, a company can give a property on lease. So a company can be a lessor. Secondly, such person or lessor should be competent to contract. Now, competent to contract, if you remember section 11 of the Indian Contract Act. Now, what does it say? It says that person competent to contract should be first major, second sound mind, and third disqualified by law. Okay, so there are three essentials. That is that such person should be major. Now, what is the meaning of major? Major means 18 years or above. Okay, that is included under the General Clauses Act as well as under the Indian Guardianship Act. Okay, so major means the age should be 18 years. Okay, he should be of sound mind. ठीक है, what is the meaning of sound mind? हम कब कहते हैं कि a person is of sound mind? When he has the capacity to understand or to form a rational opinion. Okay, so when a person is able to understand and is able to take rational decisions or rational opinions, that is called as a person with a sound mind. So basically, a person is able to understand the nature and the consequences of his act. Okay, so a person who is able to understand the nature and consequences of his act. Where is this thing given? This is given under the Indian Penal Code. So in order to understand sound mind, basically you just have to understand that such person should be able to understand and to form a rational opinion as to any particular subject, and such person should be able to understand the nature and consequences of his act. So if he is able to do all these things, such person is considered to be a person of sound mind. Then he should not be disqualified by law. Now there are certain other facts also which comes under disqualification. So if such person comes under the such kind of list which talks about disqualifications, such person will be disqualified by law. Okay. So a person should be competent to contract means he should be major, sound mind, and he should not be disqualified by law. Now one more thing I would like to discuss is that can a minor be a lessee? Tell me that. दिस विल डिस्कस यहाँ पे लेसी की जो जो हम लेसी के सॉरी जब हम लेसी के बारे में डिस्कस करेंगे ना, टिल दैट टाइम यू हैव टू थिंक कि कैन अ माइनर बी अ लेसी? Now see, such person should be a living person. He should be competent to contract. We have discussed these points. Now owner or authorizer of property means such person should be the owner of the property, right? Now if there are two parties, say A and B, okay, there is this property, this is the house. Okay, now this house does not belong to A. So how can A give this house on rent to B? So he should be the owner of the property, or he should either be the owner or he should be authorized by the owner. Okay, so you should either be the owner or it should be authorized by the owner. So living हो गया है, it includes artificial. Competent हो गया है, जो कि section 11 of Indian Contract Act में दिया गया है, major, sound mind and not disqualified by law, and owner. Now lessee का जो भी मैंने आपको क्वेश्चन पूछा था कि can a minor be a lessee? So can a person, a child below 18 years of age, say 16 years of age, take a house on rent? Can he be a lessee? तो हम देखते हैं कि इसमें क्या आंसर है. सो यहाँ पे लिविंग पर्सन तो है ही, ठीक है. Such person should be a living person. Lessee needs to be a living person. Now such property should be willing, such person should be willing to take the property on lease, definitely, and he should be competent to contract. It means that यहाँ पे भी it is mandatory that such person should be major. Is a person who is below 18 years of age a major? No. So this definitely means that a minor cannot be a lessee. Okay. So a minor cannot be a lessee. However, a minor can not only be a lessee, a minor can be a purchaser. मतलब a minor can be a buyer in sale. A minor can be a donee, the person who is getting the gift. ठीक है. But a minor can never be a lessee. Remember this point. No lease can be made in favor of a minor. Okay, and this was held in the famous case, in the very famous case of Mohri Bibi versus Dharmodas Ghosh. ठीक है. This is the landmark case, Mohri Bibi versus Dharmodar Ghosh, where it was held that no lease can be made in the favor of a minor. So he should be competent. So here also it will come, he should be major, he should be of sound mind, and he should not be disqualified by law. Okay. Now moving ahead. Now we talk about property. This also we have discussed earlier in sale, right? So the property should be immovable. We have already discussed this. Now, where is this immovable given under the under the Transfer of Property Act, Section 3? Earlier also I discussed this in sale, I discussed in mortgage, I discussed this. What is the meaning of immovable property? Immovable property does not include standing timber, growing crops or grass, and it includes land, things attached to land, things permanently fastened to things attached to land, and benefits arising out of land. Okay, so first is your land, second is your things attached to land, third is your things permanently fastened to things attached to land, and fourth is your benefits arising out of land. Okay, remember this, and it does not include standing timber, growing crops and grass. Okay, this is your immovable property as given under the Section 3 of Transfer of Property Act. Now, the second thing it says that it should be in existence. This also we have discussed earlier. What is the meaning of that it should be in existence? That means that such property should be existing at the date of doing the agreement. Okay, it should not be the case that A would say that I'll give you the property, which does not. First of all, such property will come into his say ownership after some years or some period of time or after some chance or succession. So such property should not be based on any kind of succession, chance. The landlord, or what we call as the lessor, should have that property in existence with himself at that period of time. Okay, such property should not be based on chance or succession or any other kind of chance. Okay, now such property should be transferable. We discussed this earlier. Section 6 of the Transfer of Property Act discusses properties which are transferable. In the, I think, last to last class, we discussed the 10 types of properties under section 6 which is not transferable. So section 6 says that every property is transferable except these 10. Okay. Now, so the property should be transferable. Fourth, the property should be specified. What do you mean that the property should be specified? Again, if A says to B that I want to give you my house on lease, and A has 10 houses in that particular city. So which house is he talking about? That is not specified, right? This is uncertain. So such property which he is wanting to give it to B, such property should be specified. So it should be immovable, it should be in existence. Okay, it should be transferable as well, and should be specified. It should not be any there should not be any uncertainty in it. Now, I hope you understand and you understood the basic points about property. Now let us move forward towards premium or rent. Now, what is this premium or rent? See, when the amount is paid all together, it is called premium. Paid or promised. Okay. When the amount is paid timely, then it is called rent. You understood the difference between the premium and the rent? Firstly, we saw there that the price is called the premium. What is premium? The price is the premium. That is why we say either it is either paid or it is promised. Similarly, the money, the crops, anything of value. Okay, so all these things are what? These things come under, and service also. Yes. These things come under rent. So when this amount is paid either all together, so basically when the amount is paid all together, it is called premium. And when it is paid in installments, okay, when it is paid periodically or timely, then it will be called as rent. So remember, whenever you're paying money to the landlord, or you're paying you're giving any share of crops, or you're giving any kind of service or any other thing of value, that will be considered under rent. Now, partial transfer. Acha, we missed this. So consideration is in the form of money. As I said, key consideration will be in the form of money, crops, share, or any other valuable thing. Such thing or such valuable thing should be certain, as we discussed earlier. Now we talk about partial transfer. So because only partial interest has given only the right to enjoyment of property, or the right to of possession is given without giving the ownership. So why are we seeing that the transfer is partial transfer? Because such tenant has only got the possession over it, has only got the right to enjoy, okay, and there is no right of ownership. That is why we call this as a partial transfer. When there is no right of ownership given, then it is called as partial transfer. Okay. Now let us move forward towards period. Now, lease can either be perpetual, as it was written in the provision, or it can be for a specified period of time. Okay. But what is the meaning of perpetual? Means recurring. Specified time, say 1 year or 2 years or whatever years, okay, or say 10 months, like that. Okay. Year to year, month to month, less than 1 year. Okay. So this is the period. So here we studied 5 P's. The first one was party. ठीक है. Party, property, premium, period, and I think I missed, yeah, partial transfer. Where is the cursor? Yeah. So you have to remember these 5 P's. Now there's a very landmark case in this. So in the landmark case of Tejumal versus Telgaonkar, 1980 of Bombay High Court, the following points about lease were discussed. First, sublease can be done. So lease, in this lease we'll also read in maybe the next class about sublease. Okay, so sublease is also possible, and an unregistered institution cannot be given a property on lease. मतलब क्या है? An unregistered instrument cannot be a lessee. Okay, so basically such kind of agreement would be void, and unregistered institution cannot be a lessor or lessee. So in very simple terms, an unregistered instrument can neither be the lessor nor it can be a lessee. And if any such kind of agreement is done, what will be the effect of such agreement? Such agreement will be considered to be void. An unregistered institution cannot be given a property on lease. Now we move towards section 107, which talks about lease, how made, and the formalities of lease. We are missing on section 106 as of now, because we will be doing section 106 after we are done with section 107. Okay, because right now we have studied section 105, which defined lease. Okay, so after we are done with the concept or the definition of lease, we will now be reading about the formalities, the procedural formalities of lease, and then in 106 we will be studying about the duration of lease. Okay, so we are not leaving this section. This section will be done after 107. Now see, lease how made or the formalities of lease. See, a lease of immovable property from year. So first of all, we'll read the provision and then we'll go into the basically the nitty-gritties of this section. Now see, lease of immovable property from year to year or for any term exceeding 1 year or reserving a yearly rent can be made only by a registered instrument. So what is it saying? That when the lease of immovable property is from year to year, okay, मतलब हर साल पे वो चीज रहेगी, और exceeding 1 year मतलब 1 year से ज्यादा की लीज है, या तो ईयर टू ईयर है, जो अपन बोलते हैं ना 1 जनवरी टू 1 जनवरी, या फिर 1 ईयर से ज्यादा किया है, ठीक है, और रिजर्विंग ईयरली रेंट है, या तो उसका जो रेंट है वो ईयरली पे हो रहा है, ओके, ईयरली रेंट. So in this year to year or 1 year or more or yearly rent, the lease will definitely be made only by a registered instrument. Okay, just a second, guys. I need to plug in the charger. Yes, sorry for the inconvenience. Yes. So, yeah. So, year to year of 1 year or more, or which is having any yearly rent. So, in this, such lease can be made only by a registered instrument. Then, all other lease of immovable property may be made either by registered instrument, मतलब other than this, इनको छोड़ के बाकी जितनी भी leases होंगी, they can be made either by registered instrument or by oral agreement accompanied by delivery of possession. Okay, so it can either be by registered or orally. How? By delivery of possession. Now, where a lease of immovable property is made by a registered instrument, such instrument, or where there are more instruments than one, each of such instrument shall be executed by both lessor and lessee. ये क्वेश्चन आ चुका है. This is very important. Eraser. ओके, तो ये क्वेश्चन आ चुका है. बोथ द लेसर एंड द लेसी, ठीक है. सो दिस इज द प्रोसीजर बेसिकली. सो व्हेन द लीज इज फ्रॉम ईयर टू ईयर और for more than 1 year or yearly rent, then it has to be registered first. And what is the meaning of register? What is the formalities of registration? Then it will be executed by both the parties, by both the lessor and lessee. I've seen this MCQ in many examinations, that in registration of lease, in registration of lease, how many, or we say, like for example, they'll give you the option that there is a registration of lease, it has to be executed by both the parties or only one party. So you have to click or you have to choose the option which says that such registration will be executed by both the lessor and the lessee. Okay. Now, provided that the state government may from time to time by notification. Now see, किसकी पावर दी जा रही है यहाँ पे? स्टेट गवर्नमेंट की हो जा रही है. From time to time by notification in the official gazette, direct that the lease of immovable property other than lease from year to year or for any term exceeding 1 year or reserving yearly rent yearly rent, where were we, or any class of such lease may be made by unregistered instrument or by oral agreement without delivery of possession. What does it mean? It is very simple. See that in these three cases, first of all, year to year wala ho gaya, then exceeding 1 year, and third yearly rent. It will be by registered instrument. You got this? Now, इन तीनों के अलावा, other than this, ठीक है, all other leases of immovable property may be made, इन तीनों के अलावा may be made either by, अब यहाँ पे either आ जाएगा, either by registered instrument or by delivery of possession. Now, where the lease of immovable property is registered, then the procedural formality is that it has to be executed by whom? By both the lessor and the lessee. Then, provided state government की power है that where from time to time by notification an official gazette direct that lease where the lease is from year to year, the same thing, or reserving yearly rent or exceeding 1 year. Any clause of such lease may be made by unregistered instrument also. So here a general rule is given that in these cases it will be made only by registration, but a kind of exception is given, and this exception is given to whom? It is the power of only and only the state government to notify in official gazette that even in these cases, these three cases, okay, even in these three cases, registration will not be required. It can either be by unregistered instrument or it can be by oral agreement without delivery of possession. Okay. I hope you got it. I hope I don't need to explain it to you again. But okay, I'll explain it to you again in the next slide. This you remember, okay, for sure. What? That this is the power of only state government. Okay, and that is from time to time, and how? By notification. Year to year, exceeding 1 year, yearly rent, or without delivery of possession. Now we'll see the contents of section 107. So what are the contents? What did we read just right now? We read that registered lease. In case of a registered lease, which it has to be written, it has to be signed, executed by both the parties. Again and again, I'm saying this is important. And under section 107, in a registered lease, it has to be by both the parties. And such kind of lease, which we were talking about now, that has to be either year to year lease, or it has to be more than 1 year of lease, or lease reserving an yearly rent. Early नहीं है, यहाँ पे yearly है, ठीक है? An yearly rent. Such kind of lease is called the perpetual lease that we were talking about under section 10 and 5. Okay, so such lease called perpetual lease, which is from year to year, or for more than 1 year, or lease reserving an yearly lease. You understand the formality has to be written, has to be signed and executed by both the parties. Then, without registration, where the registration is not compulsory. Okay, यहाँ पे compulsory नहीं है. It means that it can either be by registration or orally by delivery of property. Okay, so it can be done only by delivery of property. Now, what kind of lease it includes? It includes 1 year or less lease of 1 year or less, or lease of month to month. Okay. For example, say ki yeah. For example, say ki the lease is only for 10 months, or the lease of every month. Every month means the lease will get renewed every month. Okay. So here there's no need of registration of lease. And you know what? This is the reason why in our normal general circumstances we make a lease of 11 months. Have you ever noticed, if you are a student who has actually you know uh, you if you have been there, and if you have taken a house on a rent, and your landlord must have said to you that the agreement will be of 11 months. So why we do the agreement of 11 months generally? Why? Because if it becomes the agreement of 12 months, or say year to year, then it will be compulsory for you to get the lease registered. So as soon as it becomes the lease of 12 months, or if it becomes a lease of 1 year, then you will have to get it registered. Now, who has time to go to the registry office to get the lease registered? Okay, in sale, we understand that we have to go and get the sale registered. Okay, but nobody will, any common person will not have the time to go to the registry office just to get a lease registered. So this is the reason why. So this is the reason why generally people don't do the lease agreement of 12 months. They do the lease agreement of 11 months. Okay. This is a general practice. This is not written anywhere in law. But just in order to safeguard themselves, or just in order to save their time to go to the office and get the lease registered, they do this. Okay. Because here the registration is not necessary. So 1 year or less. तो हम यहाँ less कर देते हैं. It is of 11 months. Or when it is of month to month. Now, see, lease deed to contain the signature of both parties. As we discussed before, that such kind of lease deed should contain the signature of both the parties. That is, it means that it should be executed by both the parties. Now, one important thing that we are going to see now is the difference between lease and license. This is a very important question when it comes to other examinations. So we should not miss, because when it is an important topic for other examination, it might also be important for you. Okay. So, and this is also a more important question for your general knowledge purposes. So this much of legal acumen you should have if you are a law student. Let's see what is it all about. So here we are going to see the difference between lease and license. So firstly, lease. See, in lease, the right to enjoyment of property is given. Okay, so here the right to enjoyment of property, as discussed before, only the right of enjoyment is given. Such person or the tenant has no right to dispose of the property. No right of disposal of property. Now, what is license then? It is to do an act. The license is given to do an act, to permit to do an act, basically. Okay, so here it is a kind of permission to do any act. For example, a driving license means the permission given for you to drive a car or a scooter or whatever purpose, for whatever purpose it is given. So it is given to do any act, to allow any person to do an act. Here it is given for the enjoyment of a property. You understand? Lease is not lease. The purpose of lease is enjoyment of property, and the purpose of license is to give permission to do an act. Second, in lease, as we read in section 105, What is the consideration? The consideration is either rent or premium. And what is rent and premium? We just discussed. Rent is what is paid timely. Premium is what is paid altogether. Premium is the price paid or promised. Rent is the money, the share of crops, the service, and any other thing of value. Right? So here rent or premium is given, and here the consideration given is the fees and not called the premium or rent. So the consideration is called the fees. So in order to get a license, you need to pay a fee. You don't give rent or you don't give premium for that purpose. Okay. So here the consideration is called the fees. Here the consideration is called the rent or the premium. Okay. It's a very basic thing that you need to remember. Rent or premium is given and consideration is given. Here the consideration is the fees for it. Now there are licenses for many things. If you know that, for example, driving license is given or liquor license is given. ठीक है, तो यहाँ पे वो ये क्या है, ये किस चीज का लाइसेंस है? ये एक एक्ट करने का है ना कि ओके यू कैन ओपन अ शॉप वेयर यू विल बी सेलिंग लिकर, या फिर ड्राइविंग का ओके दैट यू आर अलाउड टू ड्राइव। तो आप एक तरीके से एक एक्ट कर रहे हो, यहाँ तो आप उस प्रॉपर्टी को एंजॉय कर रहे हो ना। अब जो सेक्शन 105 है उसमें बहुत क्लियरली रेंट और प्रीमियम के बारे में दिया गया है, और यहाँ ये फीस से गवर्न होता है। लाइसेंस के लिए आप एप्लीकेशन फाइल करते हो, you are supposed to file an application for a license, and for that you have to pay a fees, right? Now moving ahead, this point we have already discussed. Now termination on the 8 grounds which are given under section 111 of Transfer of Property Act. Okay, so when we talk about termination of lease, so basically for termination of lease there are 8 grounds which are given under section 111 of the Transfer of Property Act. This is a very important section that we'll be covering in the next class. Okay, that is the termination of lease. So for example, if flux of time or happening of any any occasion. So there are basically 8 grounds given that we'll be discussing in detail in the next class. The lease can be terminated only on these 8 grounds, okay, and no other ground. And when we talk about what, when we talk about basically license, here termination can be done on any ground. You might have heard that termination of license, right? So what is that termination of license? The termination of license means license को रद्द कर देना, वो that can be done on any ground. Lease के लिए the grounds are specifically mentioned under section 111. Then rights and liabilities of the parties are specified. This is specified under section 108 of the Transfer of Property Act. So what will be the rights and liabilities of the lessor, the lessee, or the transferor, the transferee? It is very clearly mentioned in section 108 that we'll be studying in the next class. Here, right and liabilities are given, it's not or, it's are given according to the licensing authority direction. Okay, so whatever is the basically the direction given by the licensing authority, जो भी लाइसेंस दिया जाता है तो वहां की जो अथॉरिटी होती है ना, वही बताती है कि आपकी इस लाइसेंस के थ्रू क्या राइट्स रहेंगी और क्या लाइबिलिटीज रहेंगी। तो उनकी ही जो डायरेक्शन लाइसेंसिंग अथॉरिटी देगी, उस डायरेक्शन के अकॉर्डिंगली राइट्स एंड ड्यूटीज डिटरमाइन होंगी। Okay, so rights and liabilities are given according to the licensing authorities direction. licensing authorities direction, ठीक है। इसके लिए कोई अलग से सेक्शन नहीं बनाएगी जैसे 108 यहाँ पे बना था। तो जो लाइसेंसिंग अथॉरिटी देगी जितने भी डायरेक्शंस होंगे वो सारे डायरेक्शंस फॉलो करने पड़ेंगे। देन इट इज गवर्न्ड बाय द ट्रांसफर ऑफ प्रॉपर्टी एक्ट। यू नो लीज जो हम पढ़ रहे हैं वो हम ट्रांसफर ऑफ प्रॉपर्टी एक्ट में पढ़ रहे हैं। लाइसेंस के बारे में जब हम बात करेंगे, इट इज गवर्न इन इंडिया बाय द ईजमेंट्री एक्ट, ठीक है। तो जो ईजमेंट एक्ट है उससे क्या हम पढ़ते हैं, उससे हम लाइसेंस पढ़ते हैं। ओके एक बार और हम देख लेते हैं दोनों के डिफरेंसेस को कि बेसिकली क्या रहता है यहाँ पे लीज में। वन सेकेंड, या so lease में there's only the right of enjoyment of property is given. Here it is to do an act. Then premium or rent is given. Here fees is given. Then termination के grounds क्या है, section 111 of the TPA, and यहाँ पे क्या है on any ground, किसी भी ground पे, जो कि यहाँ पे भी वही बात है कि जो भी लाइसेंसिंग अथॉरिटी ग्राउंड्स बताएगी टर्मिनेशन के लिए उन ग्राउंड्स पे टर्मिनेशन हो जाएगा। so sorry, yeah। टर्मिनेशन के ग्राउंड्स होगा राइट्स एंड लाइबिलिटीज जो कि स्पेसिफाइड होंगे वो, और ये जो भी लाइसेंसिंग अथॉरिटी राइट्स एंड लाइबिलिटीज देगी वो होंगे। एंड इट इज गवर्न बाय ट्रांसफर ऑफ प्रॉपर्टी एक्ट एंड इट इज गवर्न बाय द ईजमेंट एक्ट। तो आज की क्लास में हमने क्या क्या पढ़ा, हम जल्दी से एक बार फिर से देख लेते हैं। ठीक है, तो हमने सबसे पहले ये देखा कि जो लीज है वो चैप्टर नंबर 5 में दिया गया है जो कि लीज ऑफ इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी बोलता है। देन वी saw that section 105 is the definition given of lease. Then lease of immovable property is a transfer of right to enjoy such property जो कि एक certain time के लिए हो सकता है जो हमने पढ़ा, या फिर perpetuity में हो सकता है। ठीक है, certain time में दो चीजें हैं, expressed या फिर implied। देन कंसिडरेशन होना यहाँ पे इंपॉर्टेंट है, और कंसिडरेशन क्या होगा, प्राइस पेड या प्रॉमिस्ड होगी, या फिर मनी। ये चार चीजें, मनी, शेयर ऑफ क्रॉप, सर्विस और एनी अदर थिंग ऑफ वैल्यू टू बी रेंडर्ड पीरियोडिकली, जो या तो पीरियोडिकली दी जाएगी या फिर स्पेसिफाइड ओकेजन्स पे दी जाएगी। ठीक है, टू द ट्रांसफरर बाय द ट्रांसफरी who accepts the transfer on such terms. Now lesser, lessee, premium and rent defined। ट्रांसफरर को हम लेसर कहते हैं, ट्रांसफरी को हम लेसी कहते हैं। जो प्राइस होता है दैट इज द प्रीमियम, एंड द मनी, शेयर इन द सर्विस और एनी अदर थिंग, it is called the rent। Done? Moving forward, then we noted down these points that lease is given under 105 to 117. Then property should be immovable. No lease can be made of movable property. Partial transfer, that only the right to enjoy is given, only the interest is given, enjoyment is given, there is no absolute transfer. Then lease is never done without consideration, which means that consideration will always be there. Then the parties, इनका नाम lesser, lessee, transferor, transferee. Then price is in the form of money, as I said, service, crops. Okay, then price either paid altogether or timely. When it's paid all together, it's called what? It's called premium. Then when it's paid timely, it's called the rent. Then lease can be given for a perpetual period of time or for a specified period of time. Then when the price is paid timely, then it is called rent. Then we discussed about party, property, premium or rent, partial transfer and period. The 5 P's of contents of rent, sorry, lease. Here we discussed about parties. Lessor, he should be a living person. He should be competent to contract. He should be the owner. In competent to contract, we saw section 11 of the Indian Contract Act, which talks about what? Major, sound mind, and not disqualified by law. Then in lessee, we'll talk about living person, willing to take the property on lease and should be competent as same given in the second point of lessor. Then we read about property, where the property should be immovable, the property should be in existence, the property should be transferable as given under section 6 of the Transfer of Property Act, and it should be specified. The property should be specified. Then premium or rent. So basically when the amount is paid all together, it is called premium. Okay. When it's paid timely, it's called rent. And both are the consideration for the lease. Consideration is the form of money, crop service or any other valuable thing. In partial transfer, we have to remember that there's only enjoyment, right to enjoyment given. That is why it's called the partial transfer. In period, we have to see that it can either be perpetual or for a specified time. Year to year, month to month, or less than 1 year. Then in the case of Tejumal versus Telgaonkar, subleases can be also be done. That we'll be discussing in the next chapter, in the next class. And then we saw that how lease is made, the formalities basically. जहां हमने देखा कि जो रजिस्टर्ड लीज होगी वो राइटिंग में होगी, साइंड होगी, रजिस्टर्ड होगी, मतलब कि एग्जीक्यूट की जाएगी बाय बोथ द पार्टीज, बाय बोथ द लेसर एंड द लेसी. ठीक है. In perpetual lease, it's year to year, it's more than 1 year, it's lease reserving yearly rent. It has to be executed by both the parties. Then without registration means where registration is not compulsory. It can be done only by delivery of property where it is 1 year or less or month to month. Okay. Lease deed to contain signature of both the parties. So that's all for today. Today we discussed section 105, 107, and we also discussed the contents of lease, the concept of lease, and definitely the difference between lease and license. So tomorrow we'll be starting with section 107, section 108, that is the rights and liabilities of the lessor and the lessee. And under 106, we'll be discussing the duration of lease. Okay. So yes, that's all for today's class, and I hope you liked the class. And yeah, so thank you.